He asked me to stop by his home. He said he was interested in becoming a part of our church, and he had a few other people who were as well. Sure, I'll go to your home. I went to his home. As I recall it best, now this was 1988, so recollection may not be precise, probably will not be, but as I recall it, there were about 15 people in a room doing a Bible study. And they said, "We're interested in becoming a part of your church." And I asked, "What are you 15 doing?" "We're studying the Bible." "Excellent. What are you studying?" "Well, we already know something." "What do you know?" "We know exactly when Jesus will return." I'll tell you that story and the aftermath of that in just a moment. But before we get to that, we'll thank Belay. And if you listen to me talk about the sponsorship, you know Belay provides virtual workers. And by the way, Church Answers is a total virtual team. We're scattered all over the United States. We got people in the West and the East and South and Midwest, etc. We got people all over the place, but they're virtual as well. And so they fit very well with our team. But if you don't have a virtual team, like a typical church that has people on staff, the virtual workers can fit very well into that. It can be a hybrid team. Everybody we've ever had from Belay, the two organizations I've led, has been incredible. And they take so much of the work off of leaders who need to be focusing on other things. Check out their download, 25 tasks a pastor can delegate to an assistant. Excellent. And even if you're not a pastor, download it because you're going to learn something about your leadership as well. All right. It was a strange encounter. The year was 1988. I was the pastor of a church in St. Petersburg, Florida. Some people had visited our church, and a few of them ended up joining our church before Jesus came back. I'll just say that. But there was one church member that was a part of that group that I visited that night, somebody who became a part of our fellowship, who insisted he knew exactly when Jesus was going to return. Now, he wasn't the source of information. They had their Bibles open, but they had a little book. And this is the little book they had. 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Could Be in 1988. And it was such a neat book that if you flipped it over backwards, it would say "On Borrowed Time." And then you could say the Bible dates of the 70th week of Daniel, Armageddon, the millennial. I mean, it's either way you look at it, and it written this way, and then you turn it this way, and it's upside down. Now, I didn't save this since 1988. I want to tell you that. Let me put it this way, because this was the main title that so many people, hundreds of thousands of copies went out. I didn't save it, but I did find it on eBay. And so I just want you to know that I spent an entire $4 for you to get this so I could share it with you, because it brought back so many memories. They were studying passages of Scripture, and they had a precise time, I don't remember the exact date, in 1988, that they said that Jesus would come back. Now, the church member said, "Can I still join your church?" And I said, since we believe that, I said, "You can," but I said, "You cannot make that a part of your emphasis in your life, in your ministry in the church. Y'all can study it on your own, but I cannot have my people going down a trail of predicting when Jesus will return." Well, they were kind of surprised. They weren't angry at me, but they were kind of surprised, because they said, "Well, wouldn't they want to know when Jesus is going to return?" And I said, with all due respect to all of you, there is a possibility that whoever wrote this, I'm trying to remember that, Edgar C. Wissenot. I remember reading about him. He actually a very educated engineer, if I remember. It could be that Wissenot is wrong. And I just cannot let us go down the trail of that. I said, we can continue to evangelize and tell people about Christ and get them ready for whenever Christ returns or when they meet him through their own mortal demise. I said, but you cannot do that. And I have to say that church member was respectful of my request. He did not make it a major issue, but I want to tell you, he called me relentlessly to come over to his house and to study the Bible and to see why the rapture could occur in 1988. Now, I don't think the rapture occurred in 1988. If the rapture occurred in 1988, my theology is wrong and I'm in big trouble, as well as a lot of other people as well. There's no indication that the rapture took place in 1988. But there were a couple of things about this guy that I liked. I can remember how he looked to this day. Number one, he was fiercely evangelistic. He may have been evangelistic because he knew that time was short, or he thought that he knew that time was short, but he was fiercely evangelistic. And secondly, even though this seemed a little bit nutty to me, I don't think he was a nutcase. He was convinced, but I don't think he was a nutcase. The sad thing, though, was when the date did not take place, and I guess that date by January 1, 1989, you knew it wasn't going to happen in 1988, they began to fade away. That was their focus. Their focus was the date that Jesus returns instead of being obedient to Jesus to this day. And that sounds a little harsh, but that's the way it was. They studied this alongside their Bible. Nothing wrong with that. We have study guides, but this was all that they were studying in the Bible. And again, I got this on eBay, and this person, obviously, who owned this one, believed it too. I mean, he or she, not only do they underline, but they obviously got rulers out to underline this. These are some of the most straight lines that I have ever seen. That's not from the printing. That's from someone's own pen doing that. So it's pretty amazing to see these people and what they did with this particular book. Lesson to be learned. Hey, your theology is right if you say Christ returned. I mean, Jesus, the angels told them after Jesus ascended, the same Jesus who was taken up will come back just as he left you. So we know that Jesus will return. But we also know that it can be an excursion into diversions that'll take us off the main thing when we begin to come up with precise dates. Now, I agree. When I look at culture around us and I look at where we are today, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm looking up and there's Christ coming for his church, or however that is going to happen. I will not be surprised because there's so much that would indicate that the time is right. But I'm not ready to make a precise prediction. This guy did. And this guy essentially focused his heart and his life on a precise date. When that date didn't come, he didn't drop out of the church immediately, but this was so much his focus that he began to fade away. And I didn't see any of his group really for a long time, if ever. They left the church, despite our best intentions and ways to try to keep them in. So, church member said they knew exactly when Jesus was going to return. They were exactly wrong. Thank you again for listening to or watching on YouTube the Church Answers podcast. Always great to have you here. Always great to have Belay here, our sponsor. Love working with Belay. Love the fact that they have been my partner in ministry for so many years. And love the fact that they kicked off right with us with the Church Answers podcast. It's been great. Don't forget to download 25 Tasks a Pastor Can Delegate to an Assistant. I tell you, once you read that, you'll probably be ready to go to your email and say, hey, I want to set up an appointment with you folks at Belay and talk about maybe getting someone at my church as well to work alongside me. As always, thank you for being a part of the Church Answers podcast. We're already into June. Church Answers podcast has been going now for 27 episodes, and it is one of the fastest growing podcasts out there, just to say it simply. Sorry to be braggadocious, but I'm bragging on you who are listening, you who are viewing. This is really exciting to see how it has just taken off. And we'll try to continue to find these little 10-minute tidbits where we can share with you. You may listen or watch them all. You may choose to only do one or two of them. But we're always happy to have you, and we'll continue to be happy to have you in the Church Answers podcast in future episodes. We'll see you then. Hey, folks, this is a PS to our podcast. We got some exciting stuff that we want to offer you absolutely for free. Sam, when you think about predictive factors in a church's growth, if you take out demographics, what are some things that come to mind? Just two. I mean, don't give me a list of 10. Just two or three things that come to mind on predictive growth of a church.
Well, evangelism and whether the church is doing it or not.
Bingo.
And then I will add, is it an ongoing evangelism emphasis?
Double bingo. Well. And maybe something about leadership and their commitment to that. So all of the above.
Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors. Is the staff, is the lead pastor doing the work themselves?
We have a free download for you, and it's actually a sheet that you can self-score. You answer 20 questions, anywhere from strongly disagree to strongly agree, and we come back and we predict what your growth rate is going to be for the next year in worship attendance. It's not a perfect tool, but it's a good tool. There's a link to that for the attendance predictor. Look in the show notes. You'll absolutely love it. That's cool. We'll see you soon.